Okay, it's looking like everybody's getting settled. We're just going to give you a moment to get your speakers dialed in and to get your screen set up, but we are so excited to have you here today. If you could do us all a favor, let's go ahead and open up that meeting chat or the webinar chat. Let us know who's here. What company are you from or with, and maybe where are you tuning in from? We'd love to see in your chat. Go ahead and let us know where you're tuning in from and what company you are with. All right, we've got North Carolina, fantastic. Illinois, nice to see you. I see some Arizona, awesome. We've got Colorado, California. Laurel, where are you tuning in from?
I am just south of Portland, Oregon.
Okay, fantastic. Anyone else here from the Portland, Oregon area? We've got Minneapolis, my hometown, Canada. Ooh, okay, so we have Spokane, Washington, a little bit up in your area there. Awesome. Welcome everyone from all over the US and a few of you beyond the US. We are so glad to see you here today. And what my favorite part about this is that we are mostly women on this call. And so I am so excited to be able to host this because I think that the more that we can get women in construction together, the better off we will be. So it's so exciting to see all of you join here today. So don't be shy of that webinar chat as we continue throughout the presentation. Feel free to add, your thoughts, your reactions into that chat, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. We also have a Q&A tool. So locate your Zoom toolbar and open up that Q&A tool. That Q&A tool is going to be your go-to if you have any questions throughout this presentation. And we're going to hold those questions until the end of the presentation, and then we'll go through all of them at the same time, and we will have Laurel answer those questions for you. If it's something specific about JobTread, then I am happy to answer those on the spot, but go ahead and flood those questions in as Laurel presents today so that we have a healthy list of questions for the Q&A portion. Okay, fantastic. Well, we are just going to kick it off here. So, welcome everybody. We are so glad that you joined us here for the JobTread Pro Spotlight webinar. My name is Anna Hunter. I'm the Director of Learning and Development here at JobTread, and that just means that I get to see your faces on a frequent basis as we help to train you on JobTread and help you understand how to use the tool, but also best practices for your business. For those of you who don't know, our Pro Spotlight is our opportunity to introduce some of our amazing breakout session presenters from our JobTread Connect user conference that happens every year. And so these are also JobTread users. So they are kind of in that arena with you and they are your peers. So what we've done is we've asked them to continue sharing their wisdom with you beyond the conference. So what continues to make our software so special isn't just the functionality of the software, it's actually the community of builders and businesses who use it. So the feedback and engagement that you all provide is what helps our team here at JobTread become the team that can support the best construction management solution on the market. So today we wanted to highlight one of our awesome customers who has gone above and beyond by sharing their session at the Connect User Conference in 2025, but also they are now sharing it here with you today. So Laurel Winkel is the founder and CEO of SheBuilds LLC out of Oregon. SheBuilds LLC has actually been with us since September of 2022, so they are longtime JobTread users, and we are so excited to have them as part of our JobTread family. Laurel was actually featured as a guest on Eric Fortenberry's podcast, Builder Stories. And so you did episode 12 with Eric, and so that's way early on. And the topic of that podcast was shake off imposter syndrome and take the seat at the table. So if you would like to hear that Builder Stories as well from Laurel, then I'm going to go ahead and put the link for that series in the chat box so you all can also continue hearing from Laurel. Also, we are so excited that Laurel has agreed to share additional knowledge with us today with her pro spotlight called Vital Skills for Women Stepping into Leadership in Construction. So, everyone, please in the chat with your reactions, give a warm JobTread welcome to today's pro spotlight guest, Laurel Winkel. I'll hand it over to you, Laurel.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. This is so exciting. I'm looking at this chat box, over 70 women from across the country in construction. That's amazing. This is so cool. So, yeah, so a little bit about me. Let's see if I can just advance my slide here. So, I got into construction relatively recently, about 10 years ago. I grew up in a construction family, but as a woman and a girl, I kind of thought that construction was just for men. So even though I loved it and I grew up around it, I didn't really see that there was a place for me in it until one day I woke up and thought, well, that's kind of dumb. Why did I think that? And it was because I just didn't see anybody doing it. So I didn't have any examples of women in construction. But I woke up one day right around my 40th birthday, and my youngest child had just started first grade, and I realized I was going to have some time on my hands, and I decided to go back to school. We have a really awesome community college in my area in Portland that has a program, a building construction technology program called Design, Build, Remodel. And so I went back for my degree in construction and also in kitchen and bath design currently. So I did that program and graduated from that. And then I worked for somebody else for about a year, getting my feet wet, and did a lot of design work as well as a little bit of construction. And then about a year later, started my own business going out on my own. Did kind of just one project at a time for a little bit, but the idea of working with a female contractor resonated with a lot of people. And so I became pretty popular pretty fast and needed some help from other people. And so my best friend started working with me. This is Susan. She started working with me, and I also hired my husband to start helping me a little bit. He had a carpet cleaning business for about 20 years that he sold, and started working with me. And so now my team looks like this, and we do about 36 kitchen and bath projects a year, and stay pretty busy. So that's what we look like now. We don't really have the Dukes of Hazzard Dukes on my team, but we do have a team player named Duke who does not like to be photographed. So that is why we have him on our team there. But I have a fabulous team of both men and women that work with me, and we love what we do. So that's who we are today. This is a very famous rock face. I don't know if anybody recognizes this, but this is El Capitan, which sits in Yosemite National Park in California. So if anybody's from California, you probably recognize this. So a lot of people climb this rock face every year, and it takes a lot of experience and a lot of rock climbing practice to be able to scale this rock face. It's about 3,000 feet tall from the base to the top, and there's about 70 different routes that you can climb this mountain, and it typically takes 3 to 5 days to climb it. So you can imagine 3 to 5 days means that you're sleeping on the side of this mountain, and that you need the right gear, and you need the right experience, and that you need the right team. So does anybody see the climbers on the side of this mountain? Let me help you out a little bit. There they are. You see these tiny little circles there. I'll go back. So those climbers that we just looked at are right here in this tiny little crack right there, this little sliver right there. So you can imagine how much experience, how much practice, how much planning needs to go into being able to scale this rock, this mountain. It's granite that they're scaling, and it takes a lot of gumption to be able to do this. They usually do it in groups, and they usually have a team leader that's leading this group. There's a movie out, you may have seen it, called Free Solo. It's about the first person that did this climb without any gear, um, without any safety gear, without any backup, and he did it in 1 day because he wasn't having to move any gear, from hold to hold as he went, just climbed it. So I think he's a complete psycho, but that's beside the point. But anyway, so you have to have the right experience, the right stuff to do that. And so that leads me into having the right leadership skills in order to do that. So there are several different leadership styles. So let's talk about what the different leadership styles are. See if you can pick out what you think your leadership style is. See if you can figure out which one you tend to lean toward here as we go through this. The first one is the autocratic leadership style. This is the very authoritarian style. This is that person that tends to just dictate what everybody does without any input, without any sort of feedback from the team. There's usually a very clear divide between who the leaders are and who the followers are. They make all of the decisions without any feedback. There's usually very clear expectations, and there's very little creative thinking involved with the team. This is a very common leadership style for anybody in the military, for example. And it can be a really necessary style when you're in circumstances where there's a life and death sort of situation. It can be necessary in certain situations, but it can be a pretty harsh environment as well. So it's not always a situation that comes naturally to women to lead in this style. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have the laissez-faire. This one is more, very easygoing. The leader is not really giving a lot of direction for anybody. This one is very little guidance. The followers are mostly just doing their own thing, making their own decisions. The followers are empowered to just do whatever they want to do. There's very little direction. Production is generally very poor, and there's a lot of confusion because nobody really is leading anybody with this one. There's the transactional leadership style. This is, I will pay you to do this one thing, and you will receive your check for doing this one thing. So it's extremely transactional. There's usually not a lot of relationship involved. It's very financial compensation for the tasks that are being completed. There's usually pretty clear instructions, pretty clear expectations. Everyone is pretty much on the same page, but there's not a lot of creativity and problem solving happening with this particular style. For situational leadership, this is a leadership style that varies a lot depending on the individual or the circumstances around the project. It can depend on the style of project or just the situation. There's telling, there's delegating, it can be flexible depending on what's happening, but it can create an environment where things are unpredictable. So if you have people that don't necessarily enjoy a lot of change, this can be difficult for those kind of team members or employees that don't deal well with change because things are different depending on the situation. And then the democratic leadership style. This one encourages a lot of participation with the group. There's usually a lot of meetings that happen. There's a lot of guidance, but not necessarily rigid rules. There's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of outcome that's valued with the processes, a lot of engagement that's happening, and a lot of creative thinking within the team. This process doesn't always work really well with if your team members don't have a lot of skills that they've already brought to the table. But if they do have skills, then this works really, really well. Transformational leaders are very, very effective. They can take people that have the skills already and bring them into a place where they are growing and becoming better and better all the time. They inspire, they motivate, they invite people to contribute more. They bring a lot of praise and recognition, and they become coaches and mentors rather than being viewed just as employers. They definitely value people's individual strengths and talents, and they get a lot of engagement from their teams. So this one is usually these type of employers end up feeling like a very valued boss over time for people. They look back and say, that was the best boss I ever had, kind of a situation. I can't really see a lot of negatives for this kind of leader, unless you're the kind of employee that just wants to show up and get a paycheck and doesn't really want to participate much in their job. So if you're that kind of a person, then maybe you don't want this kind of a boss, but that's the only negative that I can come up with. So the male versus female leadership styles, the men have a tendency to be more that autocratic transactional leader. When they first become leaders, they have a tendency to need to grow into the more democratic and transformational leader, where women just naturally have a tendency to be more on that democratic and transformational style as a natural personality trait. But going into the construction field, especially, we have a tendency to feel like we need to lean more toward that autocratic transactional style because we are often leading men. And so we just feel like we need to set aside that democratic style and be more autocratic. So what I'm suggesting to you is that it's okay to not have to be autocratic and transactional and lean more toward our natural democratic transformational styles. So that sort of leads us into that imposter syndrome, which a lot of women in leadership, especially in construction, have a tendency to sort of suffer from, because traditionally in the construction field, it's traditionally led by men, right? So we just have a tendency to feel like, what are we doing here? Why are we in this position? You know, we feel like maybe we didn't earn it, or maybe we are here because we are, it's a family business, or, you know, something along those lines. So we have a tendency to suffer from imposter syndrome, I think, more than our male counterparts. So I love this definition of it, actually. The persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. So we just have a tendency to not give ourselves enough credit to that we're here because we deserve to be here. So just keep in mind that you do deserve to be in the position that you're in. It's just one of those things where you think that other people know more than you do, but in reality, you probably know just as much or more than they do. So just, we have to keep that in mind. It's really a hard thing to do, but it's a mental shift sometimes that we have to make to remind ourselves that you do deserve to be in this position, even though sometimes when you're working with mostly men, you have a tendency to maybe shrink back and think that you don't deserve to be there, but you actually know just as much as they do. So, leaning into that leadership and understanding all of these styles helps to facilitate a clear communication. You need to understand the different communication styles. That will definitely help a lot. Just to understand the way different people talk, the way different people communicate will help that leadership style. In our business, we use DISC a lot. That really helps to facilitate that communication. Me, I don't know if anybody else uses the DISC in their business. I am a high IS, which means I'm not really big on direct communication. I am a little bit softer, and that actually tends to be a strength of mine in my business. People that communicate with me, employees, they know that I'm not going to be super, I don't know, I'm not outlandish in my communication. I'm much more subtle, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not assertive. So they've kind of learned to communicate with me in that way. So having clear communication expectations helps your team to understand you as a leader, and it helps to avoid any miscommunications that might happen along the way. So it will help avoid conflict. Conflict is never fun. I don't know anybody who enjoys conflict, but as a woman in leadership, there's this thing that happens, right? As a woman, when you have a conflict, if you are assertive, people end up, how do you say this nicely? As a woman, if you assert yourself, you can come off a little, mm, you guys know what I'm trying to say. Women come off differently than men. Men come off as assertive, where women come off as aggressive. Let's say it that way. Um, what you want to do is have an expectation so that it doesn't come off that way. So you don't have a he said, she said situation. Just have clear expectations. That way, that doesn't happen. Everything is it's kosher with everything. Expectations, expectations, expectations. Let's see. Confidence through education and understanding. So any of the day-to-day work that you do, make sure that you're keeping up with all of the newest, latest, and greatest. If your day-to-day work that you do in your business is on the design end, keep up with what the latest and greatest is on that. If you're a project manager, keep up with whatever you need to on that. So make sure that you are educating yourself all the time. And that applies also to the people that you lead. Make sure that you know what's going on in their lives so that you can lead them in the way that you need to. Make sure you know what's going on in their families. Make sure you know what's going on with their styles. Make sure that you are aware of what's happening. That makes you a good and effective leader, to know what's happening in their lives. And also read, listen to podcasts, watch YouTube channels, watch things that help you stay abreast of what's happening in the industry so that you have opportunities to improve. There are quite a few books specifically about women in leadership that I can recommend, or that you can find out there, that are excellent. So improving your leadership styles, improving your communication skills, stuff like that. There's lots of ways to do that. Just never stop learning. Just keep educating yourself. Keep finding ways to improve your understanding. That will just help you be a better leader and a better communicator. And then always, as a woman in a leadership role, taking a consultative approach just always seems to be a better way to communicate with people. Discussion always wins out over any sort of dictatorial style. I don't know if that's a real word, dictatorial. I feel like it is. So I feel like when you discuss a situation with a team member or somebody that is a subordinate to you, that discussion will always be better than just dictating to somebody what they need to do. You're going to build confidence from your entire team when you discuss issues as a group and you take ownership of the process, or you encourage your team members to take ownership in the process. Having that group discussion always builds extra confidence. It builds confidence in them, as in their confidence in you and your confidence in them when you discuss as a group. When you ask your team members for their opinions and information, that builds confidence. And when you need clarification, or if they need clarification, it helps everybody feel that value of the team, and it makes them feel valued because you value their knowledge and they value yours. And it just creates that environment where everybody's working together. And then again, being assertive, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be aggressive or bossy. I think that when you think of a woman in leadership, very often you think of a woman that is trying to be super aggressive or trying to lead like a man. And it's not necessary for us to try to lead like a man. It's okay to lead like a woman because you can still get what you need done leading from a feminine approach. We don't have to act like a man in order to get things done. I have a team that involves both men and women, and the men on my team are not, I would not say that they are submissive. I would say they are good old boys who don't mind my more feminine approach. We we have a great communication style between us. And I think it's because I'm not trying to be something I'm not. I definitely have a softer communication style. And I think that they just appreciate that I am who I am. And I'm not trying to be something different. So we express thoughts and our feelings in a direct and honest way. I think when you are a leader, your expression of your thoughts and feelings always need to be expressed appropriately. A leader should never lose their cool. I don't think it's ever appropriate for a leader to yell or scream or slam doors or pound fists on the table. I have seen leaders do that, and I just don't think it's ever appropriate for a leader to make their team feel uncomfortable. So let's not do that. I think appropriately listen and respect the feelings of others sitting at the table, and not pounding fists and slamming doors is part of that, giving respect to others. Communicating our needs clearly. I like the idea of using statements instead of questions. So if I say to my team member, if I say, hey, Aaron, I need job logs at the end of the day. See how I went up at the end with a question? I need job logs at the end of the day. That sounds like a question. Instead of I say, hey, Aaron, I need job logs at the end of the day. That is a statement. That implies I'm not asking you for job logs. I'm telling you I need job logs. It's assertive. It's not me being a pushover and asking for job logs. I'm telling him I need a job log. But I'm not being aggressive. I'm being assertive. And I'm communicating that I need that in a clear way. Another thing you can do is you can stand up if you're in a meeting and you need to make sure that you're being heard and you're not being talked over. Simply just stand up. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to yell and scream. You don't have to even say anything different. You can simply just stand up and you'll have the attention that you need. Another thing that I sometimes do in our meetings, if I need to make sure that I'm not going to get interrupted, because I do have a little bit of a softer speaking voice, is and you guys can't see me right now, but sometimes I just hold my hand up I just hold my pointer finger up next to my face as I'm talking, um, because everybody can see that I'm trying to make a point and I don't want to be interrupted. And they will not talk over me or interrupt me when I do that. It's just a simple gesture, a simple um, hand signal that says, "Don't interrupt me while I talk." And I don't know what it is. As a person who my entire life has had a little bit of a softer voice, people have a tendency to talk over me, and I just sometimes need to make a point and not be talked over. And so I just hold my finger up, and that will prevent people from talking over me. So just a little tip if that's something that sometimes happens to you in meetings. Even as the boss, even as the CEO and owner of the business, that still happens to me sometimes. People have something they want to say, and they want to say it right now. And even if the boss is talking, they'll start talking. And so I just raise my finger next to my face so that I can finish my sentence without being interrupted. Or I stand up. So just make sure that you're using those assertive skills, and you won't have to be aggressive. So your feminine approach can still garner respect and authority without being seen as bossy. You don't necessarily need to lead the same way a man would lead. You just need to be yourself. You can be assertive, and you can embrace your natural ability to empathize and listen without having to be aggressive. And that ability to empathize and listen is what will endear you to your employees. They will feel like they have a leader that listens to them, that hears them, that sees them, and that will make them want to follow. That's always something that I hear from my employees a lot, is that they always feel like they're heard. And that I think that's really important. So in a practical application, we'll go through a couple things. We communicate in my team in a few different ways. We have group texts. We have an all staff group text. We have my design team group text, and we have our field team group text. So we also communicate with our clients through a weekly project update email, and sometimes text with clients if necessary on a day-to-day basis. So we have open communication with our team on a daily basis. So this is just what it looks like in a practical sort of way. We have, like I said before, our DISC profiles so that we understand each other. We don't necessarily use the Myers-Briggs or Enneagram. I just put this in here in case anybody, if you don't want to do the DISC, there are other personality systems that you could use if you prefer a different method. We have taken it. My operations manager, she's the ENFJ type, and I'm actually the INFJ type. So you can see as a leader, I'm a natural introvert, actually. So you don't always have to be an extrovert to be a leader. I feel like my team has a fairly healthy respect for me, and we have a really good relationship. Yet I'm not that extroverted leader. So all personality types have the ability to be good leaders. One of the ways we have clear communication and that expectation that I was talking about, with clear expectations, is through using our JobTread system to create very laid out systems so that we can have that clear process. Clear communication, clear workflows, clear design methods and everything that we have for our field and our to-dos, our dashboards, all of that stuff creates pretty clear expectations. So when there's a process that isn't working, we know where we've gone wrong and we know what needs to be corrected pretty easily. Here's another example, just how we are setting up our systems. And we have our design meetings every single week. We have a design meeting with a very laid out agenda, as well as our project management meeting on Friday mornings. We go through every single project and detail where we're at with everything. So we have very clear laid out expectations and where we're at in the process. And all of the team members are involved. So we're having very detailed communications with everything. So we're consulting with each other. And that is the leadership style that we have at SheBuilds, is that we're very consultative with each other. We use daily logs every day to prepare for our meetings so we know where we're at with everything. We have our schedule in JobTread. Every job has a different color so we can see readily where everybody is each day and what's going on with every project for those things. Having those daily logs helps us to know exactly where we're at with everything so we can problem solve and troubleshoot. Again, just as we close, just remembering that the feminine approach can still get you that respect and authority that you need. It's okay to be feminine. We don't need to be, out there kicking cans over and punching walls to get respect and authority. It's not necessary to lead the way a man would lead. You can be assertive without being bossy, without being aggressive. And it's okay to embrace our natural ability to empathize and listen. Very important. And as Judy Garland said, always be a first-rate version of yourself instead of a second-rate version of somebody else. There we are. I'll turn it back over to Anna.
Wonderful. Thank you so, so much, Laurel. That was super inspiring and also just an incredible reminder of how we're all in this together, and the only way that we are going to grow ourselves is to lift each other up in the industry. And so we have some questions that have come in, and I will go through those questions with Laurel and have you answer them directly. And then if anyone else has additional questions, please add them to the Q&A tool, and that will help us keep track of those. So one question that we have is your list of book recommendations. Are there any leadership books that come to mind and that are kind of front and center for you as you think that those would be helpful for those listening?
Sure. Yeah, I just pulled up my Audible account so I can tell you the names of a few. There's a great one called She Thinks Like a Boss by Gemma Rodell. That's a really good one. And another one is called Female Leadership by Sophie Lawrence. And then there's another one called Like She Owns the Place by Kara Alwill.
Those are great. I know I've heard of a couple of those, but I've yet to dig in. All right, and kind of expanding upon that, could you tell us podcast recommendations? What are your go-to podcasts?
Oh, podcast recommendations. That I would have to let me pull up my podcast app here. Of course, I love the Kyle Hunt's podcast. That's, of course, one of my go-tos. That's not necessarily female oriented as much, but I also love one called, trying to get to it. I think it's called Leadership is Feminine, if I remember right. I'm just trying to bring it up really quick.
While you're finding
That,
that, the Kyle Hunt's one is for remodelers
oh
on the
yeah,
rise,
remodelers
I
on the
believe.
rise.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yep. And of course, the JobTread one is always good.
Builder stories. Yes.
Builder
We
stories.
love that.
Yeah. Yep. That's a
Fantastic.
good one.
All right. So you all have quite a few resources to dig into. So let's go over some of these other questions. So for women as CFOs in construction, do you have any tricks? So on the financial side.
For women that are CFOs on the financial side. Hmm. I guess I would ask what kind of tricks specifically, like tricks for communication, or I'm not sure.
Yeah. If there's any specific follow-up to that, Alexis, go ahead and add that in the chat or either the Q&A, and we can be sure to continue that. All right. What about, could you show the slide with the disk and the links to other options
Oh,
like
sure. Yeah. I
Myers-Briggs?
think it was yeah,
Perfect.
one was Myers-Briggs and then there's the Enneagram.
Yeah, and that the Myers-Briggs one or MBTI, that's a type indicator assessment, and that what link that Laurel has right there is the link to the free version of it. So it is a simplified version of the bigger Myers-Briggs assessment, and I'd say I'm a Myers-Briggs coach as well, and so I would say that it's pretty darn close. And so leveraging that free tool is really great with your team, and it's a little less time for them to go through it as well. So that's fantastic. And then Enneagram is always great. That one is a little bit more about how one perceives themselves. And so that you're going to get kind of just different results based on that one. But I love all of these, and I agree, like DISC is extremely helpful within teams.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay, fantastic. And then the next one is, do you find it important to get a bunch of certifications and licenses to validate your expertise?
Certifications and licenses, it depends on what you're being licensed in. Um, as far as professional things for design and building, that sort of thing, yes, I think those licenses and certificates are important. When it comes to other things like, um, I don't know, leadership and things like that, maybe not as much. I think you can learn a lot from podcasts and books without having to actually have certificates and things like that. You can learn a ton from
Mhm.
from podcasts and from other people.
Great. Yeah, I think that the other people is another like key thing there, right? Because I find that I actually gain some credibility and build a strong relationship with team members. They may be employees, you know, that if I say, hey, I don't know how to do that, and I would love for you to teach me. So in some cases, as a leader, being able to humble yourself to learn, you know, that can also build some rapport. Would you agree with that, Laurel?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And that's okay
Yeah.
too. As women, it's okay to learn from others as well. Fantastic. Okay. And then I've been told my leadership style is a take no crap approach, and that it's because I'm young. What advice would you give for softening that approach?
I think a take no crap approach is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's important to hone your skills as a listener because sometimes the take no crap approach can be perceived as somebody who um, is not necessarily listening all the time. So just make sure that you're listening to what people are telling you and then don't take any crap. So um, sometimes people, if they want to give you crap, just make sure that you're being discerning in that and that you are not, um, you don't want to let people steamroll you, but you want to make sure that you are um, just not, you know, not putting any walls up where you shouldn't. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
Mm. I think that makes sense, it's kind of that like finding that balance again, right? Where there's a time and a place to step up and lead and push through, but then there's also a time and a place to kind of step back and sometimes listen first, because then you'll be more educated to make that next step, right? Mhm.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Okay, so communication and collaboration with project managers and owners with regard to, oh, so this is the CFO tips and tricks. So communication and collaboration with project managers and owners with regard to financial needs and needs for balance with the accounting, with what the accounting department needs. So it sounds like any tips and tricks for holding others accountable in that role, and they're not quite your employees, but you definitely need a lot from them to keep the books straight, right? So as a woman in construction, holding others accountable when they're not quite your direct reports.
Oh, gotcha. I have found because I do a lot of the financial stuff in my business as well. I have found that frequent, very frequent communication when it comes to finances on projects is really important. It's super easy for finances on remodeling projects, building projects to get out of control and things to just run away, right? So I would say communication just needs to be as frequent as possible with clients, with project managers, just often, just as often as possible. Talk about here's where your money's going this week. Here's where it went. Here's where it's going. Here's where it's trending. Here's where things are over budget. Here's where things are under budget. Just, I think clients appreciate super often, communication.
Mhm.
That would be the one thing I would say helps more than anything on our projects is frequent communication.
I love that you say that because what that makes me think of is providing some additional context for why we might need the receipts to be turned in and any like expenses to be logged. Um, because it's one thing to say, hey, you need to do this, but it's another thing to provide that why or the context or helping team members to understand their role in the bigger picture. If I'm not just asking you to do this because I prefer it because I need it. But here is what like my process looks like, and this is how we get the right numbers to the customer on a frequent basis. And so helping them understand their role in the bigger picture, and this is how we make our customers happy. This is how we can maintain our profits throughout the job. This is how we know where we're at in the project. Sometimes that why can really help so it doesn't feel like you have to come down with a heavy hand and for accountability, but more so they now have buy-in because they understand their role in the bigger picture. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that 100%. Explaining the why is super, super helpful. I think that, yes, absolutely. Not just, hey, I want your receipts because I want your receipts because I just want to be mean about it. I need your receipts because I have to be accountable to the clients.
Mm-hmm.
And they're
Mm-hmm.
expecting a report from me on Friday and I need your receipts. So, yeah, that's an excellent point.
Yeah,
Yes.
fantastic. And that all is just tied into the communication side of everything. So that is one thing that we can really leverage is high communication. All right.
Right.
So when you're first starting, how do you recommend obtaining funding for projects that won't pay until a month later? So yeah.
Ooh, I always recommend funding projects with the client's money and not yours, actually. Um, I think it's super important that you have deposits up front from clients so that you're purchasing materials and paying for labor from the client's deposits, not from your own, if possible. I don't know what the context is, but I always recommend not funding out of your pocket, but from the client's pocket. If not, a line of credit from the bank is the route I would go, actually. But I definitely would take deposit money from the client ahead of time and be funding projects that way.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, you have a lot more questions here, Laurel. So this is a hot topic.
Okay.
How, get ready, buckle in. So how do you apply DISC in your day-to-day leadership? What's the application side of that?
How do we apply DISC day to day? I would say that um, mainly we use DISC in our business just to understand the communication style of each of our employees so that we understand the way we like to be communicated to and between in our meetings. I don't really have anybody in my business that has a difficult communication style necessarily. We mesh pretty well, but it would be really helpful to know if I had somebody that was extremely high on one particular, the D, I, S, or C, so that I would just know how they like to be heard or how they like to communicate. So that's the main way we like to just use it.
Yeah, it sounds like it kind of becomes a language within your team where
Right.
you're now
Right.
like putting on new glasses because you're seeing your team members through a different lens when you're communicating with them.
Right. Exactly. And it's excellent for hiring too, because different positions kind of need different um, skills. So it's an excellent tool for hiring to make sure that you're getting the right person in the right seat.
Fantastic. Yes. Okay. So kind of a scenario setup here. I'm 25 and I've recently joined the construction business. I'm working for my dad and learning the ropes. I'm in an office management position now. Do you have any pointers for people just beginning in the industry?
Yeah, I would say learn from the people around you as much as you can. Just absorb as much knowledge as you can. Spend time on the job sites if you can. It sounds like it's an office position, but if you can get it on the job sites to just absorb knowledge, because what you're doing in the office in your position is important, but understanding what's happening in the field will make you better at whatever you're doing in the office. It's important to understand all aspects of what's happening in construction. So the more you understand what's happening in the field, the more you'll be able to thrive in your position in the office, whether that's just administration or design or whatever it is. Understanding all aspects of it will make you better. So that's
Mm,
what I would do.
that's great advice. Knowledge is power in
Yes.
many cases. Okay, how do you prepare for hard conversations with subcontractors or clients? I tend to back down and I'm unable to gain confidence and stand my ground.
Oh, that's a great question because I don't like hard conversations. That's not part of my personality, but I do have to do it. And so I just have to buckle down. One of the things that I've learned is that they're never as bad as I think they're going to be. I've never had a conversation with a client or a subcontractor or an employee that has gone as bad as I make it in my head ahead of time. So I just, I prepare for it. I kind of go through what I think the worst case scenario is going to be. And then I just sit down and I take a few deep breaths and I make the phone call. Or, sometimes it's face to face, either way. And I just try to make sure that I have my wits about me and I never let my emotions get the best of me. And I just, you know, I just try to see things from their perspective and keep my cool and let them be heard, tell them I understand, tell them I hear them, and and I always hear them out before I give any of my own perspective. I always hear them out first. And it almost always diffuses the situation. I have a lot of times had them come in hot first, but by the time they're done telling me their side of the story, they've gotten it all out. It's all done. It's good. And we're able to talk it out. And by the time the end of the conversation is there, we're everything is everything's cool. Everything's kosher. They just need to get it out. So just kind of
Yeah.
let that happen and everything's fine.
Yeah, that's another great point there, Laurel. Like people have a hard time hearing you unless they feel heard first, right? And so their ears aren't open unless their mouth gets to kind of purge a little bit.
Right. Right.
And so laying out the situation on the table, okay, now it's something we can work with. And then let me hear your thoughts and then I'll chime in. Like what a great approach. And that's almost like a formula that you can rest on in those moments. So that's great. Okay, what platforms have you used to get certified, and what are some that you would recommend someone start with?
Um, Depends on, I guess, what we're talking about certifications. Certified for design or for building.
Hmm.
Um,
Jackie, why don't you go ahead and just add a little bit more context to your question there? There should be an option to reply on your own question. So we'll leave that there for now until you can give us a bit more context of what you're looking for. All right. Another note, somebody mentioned, as a woman, I find it difficult to have a voice, maybe in the room or on the site. How would you respond to that?
I would say make sure that you are standing and you talk. That's a big one for me. I I can definitely feel this one. It can be hard to feel like you're being heard, especially in a crowd. If there's, five people at a job site having a conversation, it can be hard to step in and have a voice. So you just need to step in there. I literally raise my hand when I'm speaking so that people see me and hear me. And not because I'm asking permission to talk. It's me saying, I'm talking right now. And so that just is is me saying, I'm I want your attention and look at me. So that's I guess that would be my tip for getting people to focus on you when it's your turn to talk. Some sort of gesture that you're speaking is just a signal, and you don't have to say anything about it. It's just that that gesture just automatically signals to other people that you're speaking and it's your turn to talk, and they won't interrupt you when you do that. So give that a try, see if it works for you.
I love that. All right, let's go back to the certification one. So platforms that you use to get certified, and they're starting and managing a team in the construction industry, and they're just looking for general certifications that they should be looking at as they're preparing for leading a team within the construction industry.
Okay. Certifications for managing a team. I don't know that I have any specific certifications for managing a team, although I have a degree in construction from my college program that I did. So that's what I have as far as that goes. And that is my degree in design build from Portland Community College. So that it's a construction management degree.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't necessarily say that I have any specific certifications other than that.
Okay, anything that comes to mind in like the project management sphere, they're wondering.
Um, I'm trying to think if there's any other places to get project management certification. I'm not aware. There's probably places. I would do some research and see if there are other places to get construction management certifications. I think there are. I'm just not aware of them.
Yeah, yep. And there are a lot of like free online certification programs now as well through LinkedIn or YouTube is coming out with a new certifications or course kind of program as well. And so keep your eye out and why not? Why not just try them out and it may pay off. All right. And then being in a male-dominated field, how do you stay true to your leadership style rather than conforming to your audience or your team? I tend to feel less understood when using a more delicate approach versus a direct approach.
Right. That's the exact challenge that we have as women in the construction industry because it is such a male-dominated industry. It's really easy to lose our personal style and to try to blend in with what's out there. So I would say just be yourself and don't try to blend in. Standing out is exactly the right thing to do, actually. Stand out by being yourself and just go with your own natural leadership style, but develop that style. Learn how to be a better leader in your own natural style and become um, that style where you're learning how to be a mentor to others, learn how to be a developmental leader, and learn how to be different. It's okay to not lead like a man in the construction industry. That is why my business does well, actually. That's what attracts clients to me is that I am different from what they're seeing out there with all the other male dominated businesses. They see SheBuilds as a business that takes a softer approach. And even my male employees, like I said, they're not submissive men. They're good old boys that have been in the construction industry for a long time, but they love working for me. They really like the environment that is not abrasive. They like that it's a an easy place to work, that we have conversations, that our meetings are like, you know, group discussions, that I'm not dictating what they do, that I give them the opportunity to go out and figure out how to solve problems without being a dictator. They like our approach. So do it differently. The construction industry has been run by dictators for too long. So go out there and lead like a woman.
I absolutely love that. And I wish we could end on that, but do you mind, Laurel, sticking around for just a couple more questions?
Not at all.
Okay, because they keep coming, but that was such a like a strong, strong statement by you. Um, okay, someone had asked earlier, what advice would you give an operations manager on day two? Yesterday was their first day and they're trying not to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, it can be really overwhelming. Just keep going. It's gonna feel like you're drinking from a fire hose for a little bit, but just keep going and try to just take one step at a time.
Mhm. Great. All right, now we have a couple practical things. So one of them is, do you have any tricks to help decide how many hours to budget for jobs when it's not a cut and dry job? And someone commented on that saying they fear doing change orders later might come off as though they're trying to trick the customer into giving them more money later on. So how do you feel confident in your estimating numbers? That's a big question, so you can take a stab at it.
It is a big question. It's hard. It's really hard to estimate. What I usually tell people is that I'm not, actually, I don't even call it an estimate anymore. I learned recently at the peer group that I went to, we now call it a opinion of probable cost. And I tell people when I give them that it's not possible for me to predict everything that will happen on their project. There's going to be things that will come up that we haven't thought of yet. And there's going to be things that will come up that um, we don't know about because I don't have X-ray vision and I don't have a crystal ball. So the best thing we can do is give them a really, really good idea of what I think their project is going to cost. And as we go through our design process, we'll be able to flesh out more things and we'll get closer and closer to what the final cost is going to be. And once we do their project, we'll be very, very close. And even once the project starts, things might come up. And if that happens, we will have change orders. And so just expect that there will probably be some things that come up that will need change orders. So that way, during the process, when those change orders do come up, I've already told them that there will probably be some. So it's just setting those expectations ahead of time. That way, they're not surprised. So it doesn't feel like I'm tricking them.
Mhm.
So I hope
Yeah, it
that makes
sounds like you're
sense.
very raw and honest from the beginning. That's great.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and one more kind of practical question here. How do you provide clients with a snapshot of their budget for the week? Do you use JobTread or is there another platform you use?
With a snapshot of their budget for the week.
Mhm.
So on Fridays, our project manager sends them a an email with their schedule for the following week, what we expect their project to look like for the next week. We don't necessarily do a budget update every single week. We do a budget update every few weeks. And at that point, we kind of give them, we do it through JobTread and we show them where they're at on their budget with what their estimated budget was going to be and where they're at so far, basically, with what they've what we've spent on their project so far. Like this is what we had on in your budget for electrical, this is where we're at, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of where we're at. Although we are moving away from doing it line by line like that, and it's becoming more of a this is our materials budget, this is our subcontractor budget, and instead of doing a more detailed, it's getting a little bit more broad.
That's great. Okay, and I was going to share this as well because there is an opportunity to use JobTread to share your budget with your customers, and you can set up a specific budget view that is limited to whatever columns you want to share with them. And then that can be real time on their portal as well. And so I'm going to drop a link in the chat here. And so if you're interested in kind of a shared budget view with your customers, then follow that link and there's a video and a tutorial that walks through how to do that. But but yeah, I've seen many people do just download a PDF snapshot of the budget, and it's a nice and pretty budget on a PDF document that they share with the customer, or you can show your screen. But I would recommend creating a custom budget view that so that it's not all your numbers that are shown to them, and you can control what columns are shown to them. So. That's great. Okay, Laurel, I think we tackled them all.
Okay.
Wonderful. So, I would like to thank you all so much for being here today. And if you'd like to continue the conversation about women in construction, we will have a Women in Construction Roundtable at the JobTread Connect User Conference in January, from January 14th to the 16th down here in Dallas, Texas. In fact, that's where Laurel was speaking last year during the conference. And so you're going to not only be able to join those roundtables, but you'll also be able to engage across several education sessions. So if you'd like to learn more about JobTread Connect, just go to jobtreadconnect.com and you can learn more and get your tickets there. But tickets are selling very fast. We will sell out for the conference this year. So if you haven't gotten them yet, I highly suggest doing so. And thank you so much, Laurel. It looks like you have tons of applause coming through the chat. And so I hope you enjoyed sharing your thoughts and your knowledge with everyone here. But this is just a fantastic community, and let's keep that conversation going.
Yeah, thanks everyone. This was really
Thank
fun.
you. Perfect. Thank you all so much. See you later.